a few people are going to be joining us halfway through the tour because they're running a bit late. So thank you for your patience. I'm Darrel Blake. For those who don't know me, I am the founder of an organisation called Black Rooted, which basically celebrates black culture, black history, also looks into social media representation and also education. Today is the first time of this tour. Basically you lot are the pilot because I've already been bought out by a school who actually want to have this for secondary school kids, Key Stage 4. So well done to me. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, literally I've been so busy, for those that don't know me, doing community work, early intervention stuff, focus on black men and mental health, and also looking at Caribbean culture in the UK. So that's pretty much my field, as well as historian, ethnography work that I do, and also look into writing books. I've got my first children's book coming out next year. So yeah, I'm just trying to do so many things because I believe early intervention is very, very, very important, especially with young people, what's going on today with young people. So most of what I do is for the young people, but for adults and parents to come in and get involved in programs that I'm doing and workshops and projects, it helps me spread the word out so they can break it down. I believe that we really need to save the youth. Frederick Douglass once said, it's better to raise strong children than to repair broken men. So early intervention is my key. So today is literally looking at black history, but mainly slavery, going through colonial times. And I believe, well, one of my elders once told me, if you want to find how Britain do their dirty work, you got to follow the money. So today we're going to follow the money. Yeah. And so pretty much that's what it is. Halfway through we'll have a quick break for like 20 minutes, then we'll continue on. It's a beautiful day, it's not going to rain or anything. We're aiming for around 20 to 23 degrees today, so it should be nice and warm. There will be a few stops along the way to get water, or if you want to bend your leg a little bit better. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask. I know some bits, I don't know everything, but if you do have any questions and I don't know it, tell me, I'll write it down tomorrow morning to have the answer for you. Okay, so don't badger me too much, innit? But yeah, so this is literally for me giving back because I've been so busy, and I thought, you know what, I need to do something for the community, get everybody together on a beautiful day. And today is like an important day, Haitian Revolution as well, so we've got to give it up to our Haitian brothers who fought back the French. Anyway, the reason why I chose this location, does anybody know where we are? We'll see if who's awake. Where are we? Where are we, sir?
By the Bank of England.
Right, Bank of England. Why did I choose the Bank of England as a starting point? Anybody need to think of why?
What is it?
It's on point, it's on point. Where we are, this is called the Royal Exchange. If I am incorrect on anything, please feel free to...
No, I'm no expert, please. I'm not going to correct you on anything.
What is your position, sir, before we continue?
So I'm a Labour councillor in the City of London. I grew up about a mile, not even a mile, half a mile down the road. So I just wanted to... I saw the news about the Glasgow University and reparations, so I wanted to come here and learn and then see if we could do anything like that in the City of London. Obviously there are not many Labour councillors in the City of London, so it's not like I've got a big voice, but yeah, I just wanted to learn really, so that's fun.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, go easy on him. I don't really like politicians sometimes. But yeah, so I chose this location because where we're standing right now, this is literally the hub of the money. Right behind us, we have the Bank of England, which technically isn't the first Bank of England, but they go by the first Bank of England. In 1694, that's when they started trading. This building right here. It's ugly. It looks pretty bland. As you will notice, in the City of London, which I think William would agree, you see the crosses, the English flag? It becomes very, very, very important in time to come. I'll explain why. But you'll notice what that sign will be by the time we get to the end of the location, and then you'll pay attention to it more when you walk around. So Bank of England, in 1694, they started trading as goldsmiths. So what that basically is like, if you've got goods, okay, or you need to deposit your goods, you come to me, They say, hey, Darrel, I need you to hold this for me. I'm like, brilliant. I'll give you a receipt. That's pretty much how the first banking system went. How they started was that they invested a lot of money in the 1700s and the 1600s in plantation slavery. So the Bank of England first started trading with slave ship owners, plantation owners, and also small businesses that wanted to get into insurance, which we'll get into in a minute. So the Bank of England, literally, as ugly as it is, has a lot of money. If anybody's got a note out, and the top of the note, has anybody got a note out? You're Richie. You see the Bank of England at the top? Yeah? So basically it says, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5. Basically what this means is with this receipt, you're meant to go into the Bank of England and be like, here you go. And they're meant to go, fine. And they get 5 gold bars out and give you 5 gold bars for this receipt. Do you think there's 5 gold bars in there for you? So what's this worth? They print enough of it for us to believe that it's actually a working system, but I'll break down the note and how that actually works through colonial slavery. When we go through this journey, we're going to focus on one family member. His name is Edward Lloyd. He was like the pioneer behind British slavery and colonial movements throughout West Africa, going right down to the Caribbean. So we're going to move over around the corner to Lombard Street, and Lombard Street is pretty much like the Oxford Circus of slavery money. Okay? Fantastic. Yeah. So Edward Lloyd was one of the most prominent traders of coffee. Pretty much this was like the Starbucks location for any of the sailors that were sailing around the transatlantic waters, and also for those who were doing apprenticeships in becoming sailors. This location here, obviously they built it up, but it was a lot shorter. Pretty much literally had the best of the best slave traders used to go in there, because what they used to have, they used to print off a marine kind of like newspaper, and that gave the update of the best slave ships, who's owning the most land, how much coffee is, how much gold is, how much rubber is, how much sugar is, how much tea is, and that sort of thing. So he basically housed all of the best slave traders. Also, when we walk past that building there, that used to be the hub for the Haywood Bank. Anybody heard of the Haywood Bank? Haywood Bank was pretty much they were the bosses of the slave trade in Liverpool. So instead of traveling all the way, they had a connection down here who was sponsored by Edward Lloyd. So even though slavery was happening a lot in the 1600s in Liverpool, London was starting to boom as soon as we get to the end of 1600 and 1700. So this street, Lombard Street, is famous only because it's housed a lot of slave traders and slave owners that used to work along here, and also get their local coffee, local tea and whatnot. But so we had this place here, and then we had the bank that used to be there, which is the Haywood Bank. It's not there anymore, but I don't know what it is now. But that was the connection for the Liverpool slave trade of the Haywood Bank. Okay? We're just going to move a bit further.
So how's it going?
Yeah.
Very good?
I'm going to do another long walk here. This is pretty much the base of Transatlantic Street. We're going to be walking down there in a minute. I want you to kind of tell a narrative by starting from the beginning and working my way. So, starting off with Edward Lloyd, starting at the coffee house, and then, him getting into the business. What he did was he created a lot of magazines and newspapers that would showcase slave ships, vessels, pretty much like the daily news. when he started to become a bit popular, his idea was like, I can make some money off this. So what he decided to do is create Lloyd's register of shipping. See at the top there? The ship there. You see the sculptures in the building. They're kind of telling the story of how it began. It started off with coffee and having ships to do trading across East India and through West Africa. This place insured at least 300 slave ships. The most famous one is called the PARR, which was from Liverpool, which was built in 1797, holding at least 600 slaves. The funny thing about it is that they would insure slave ships to carry 600 slaves, but the slave masters carry over that, because halfway along the journey, they're going to throw something out. So let's say they're carrying 700, they're insured for 600. By the time they get to the other side, they probably may have like 400 or 500, depending on how serious the occasion is. Two things that used to happen a lot. One was when a slave basically became ill. If I am ill and I'm chained to the person next to me, they're going to assume that that person's ill as well. So if they throw me off, I'm chained to that person, and whoever's next is all coming off. The other one, which they don't really talk about, is the rebellions. A lot of the slave ships didn't go down by people just falling ill and stuff like that. A lot of slave rebellions happened, especially those that came from... Any Nigerians in there? One? Any Jamaicans in there? You know which... Don't take the Jamaicans anywhere. Right, so a lot of rebellions happened on the slave ships on the journey from West Africa to Jamaica. You can look up their public records, they're not hiding it anymore, because pretty much they're not ashamed, but because of the power force of, like, let's say, black consciousness, we talk a lot, but we don't do a lot. So they can put the information out there on their websites, but we ain't gonna do nothing about it. But they reveal how many revolts that happened. So they created this place here, which is in the same line, which is next to East India Arms, which we're going to go to, which is in the same line as something else, which is in the same line as something else. The reason I wanted to show you that journey is because there's actually a triangle of money. But literally, they didn't keep anything away, they kept everything in a cluster. And we're just following one person's journey, which is Edward Lloyd, who started this. You can go close and take a picture, you can look inside. You've got Lloyd's Avenue there. And I'm pretty sure you passed Lloyd's Bank around the corner. We'll get into that in a minute. But we're going to cross over the road and head over to East India Arms and talk about East India. Yeah? We're going to cross here. Outside in the heart of Covent Garden, and in front of the church, that's where they used to have the stable. And then they used to travel them up to like Kent that way and up north to the Midlands. So whenever you pass the church in Covent Garden, you will start to see a little bit of Africanness in the rooms as well. We're going to head over to this thing over there. Remember, this is like the heart of London. London is only 1 square mile everywhere, so whoever lives outside of these walls is pretty much in Greater London. And that doesn't believe we live in London, we don't. So if you read that, you don't have to read it, but when you read that, it pretty much makes it sound pretty like the East India Company used to do trading, and they made a lot of money. Queen Elizabeth was like, yay, great stuff. And then when you hear words like trade, empire, you have to be like, yeah, that's the kind of approach you've got to look when it comes to dealing with British history. What it doesn't tell you is that how they got their wealth is that they went to India, colonized India, stole their spices and their tea leaves, and started to sell it to the Europeans. Also, what they don't tell you is that East India was involved in the West African slave trade. The area of Guinea, so that's like Ghana, Benin, Nigeria, that section there. East India used to import a lot of West Africans to the Caribbean. Not a lot. How they save money is in the ships they used to have the spices in the top, and also have the slaves at the bottom. So they used to have the one go instead of having separate ships because they used to make a lot of money from tea. Also, what's funny, it says the East India Company ceased trading in 1834. Lloyds again took over East India House. Now, why is 1833 important? Does anybody know? Slave trading was abolished in 1807. Slavery was abolished in 1834. So is it a coincidence how these people stopped trading in 1834, the year after slavery was abolished? You said they just worked their way just nice and they're sly, but they get even more sly in a second at the next bit. So this building's been there for a long time, but again, it's right next to Lloyd's Register of Shipping, which is next to the next location, which is literally across the road from where Lloyd started. Again, it's quite obvious, but the roots of it, if I'm honest, yeah, the roots of the building is based around tea trading. Okay, they was trading for about 100 years originally, from 1836 to 1935. Everything was based around tea. This is where they used to hold auctions as well. They had candle auctions, so basically they would light a candle, everybody be bidding on products. When the candle finishes, that's it, done. Instead of like someone saying 100, 200, 200, and going like that, they had tea, they had candlelight auctions. Most of the tea they got came from East India Arms, which is also sponsored by Lloyd's Register of Shipping, who's also connected to his building over there, Lloyd's Coffee House. From there to there, to the East India Arms, to this place. I mean, they could have thought of a better name, but considering where they was getting their tea from in India, I think they was basically calling it what it is, straight in the face. Register of Shipping, slavery, East India Arms, colonisation, plantation place. All in the same bit. You can see pretty much both of them there. Okay? We're going to move over to the second bit. It's a representation of people, families, men, women, and children. And this is pretty much how they used to stand. Over here, it's got a piece by William Wilberforce, which, you know, he's been labelled as the father of, or the main guy behind the abolition of slavery. But he couldn't have got his work done without the Nigerian Luda Equiano, who was a slave right up until he was 11 years old, and he was sold to America. Until he was 21, he bought his freedom and came back to London, and then he wrote about his experience. With that knowledge, people picked up his work and was like, hey, this is kind of bad, and so on and so forth. So you had people like William Wilberforce and John Newton, who was a friend of his. John Newton was a guy who owned slaves, and pretty much had a journey across the waters, and there was a massive storm coming, rocking the boat, and he was scared, and he was like, do you know what? I feel as though I'm gonna die. So God, please save me. If you save me and save my people, save the slaves, I will be forgiven, I will forgive them, I forgive myself, and on that I will start to preach and push out the abolition of slavery. The storm went, he thanked God, and he was like, thank you, I'm going to write about it. John Newton is the creator of Amazing Grace. He's a slave owner. Check out the words when you say, "Save the wretched like me." No offense to any Christians, but when you go in church on Sunday and you're singing Amazing Grace, and you're not singing the full song either, you're singing the part that the pastor likes to jump around. So you can see the significance between Christianity and slavery. So, Amazing Grace, everybody, slave owner. This part here is pretty much the auction block. If you want to walk up, you can. If you get a feel for what it would be like auction of slaves. You don't have to. It might be a bit in reality, but feel free to go up and stand that way and have a look at what would happen. Anybody familiar with how property or cargo of African slaves were checked out? Is anybody familiar how they get checked before they get sold?
As a physical touch.
Yeah. As the gentleman was saying, physical touch. So if you are here with your family, you're pretty much going to be separated. For the fellas that are here, so they will check your groin area, make sure it's strong, healthy. They would also put their hands and fingers in areas that they shouldn't go, but they will make sure that you haven't been touched in certain places. For women, they will also do the same. You might want to cover little missus' ears there. They will double check to make sure you're a virgin. There isn't like a manual how to check the woman to see if she's a virgin. They'll just do it until they see fit. Your bosoms will be pretty much felt through the whole nine. And then they would decide on exactly what your role is going to be. So some women, you would work on the plantation. Some of you would work in the house. You would have many different roles. Some women will be sold just to be pretty much like the Caribbean is a breeding farm. That's all it is. So what used to happen is when they were sold, you would have a breeding house where a woman would be in there blindfolded. That was their purpose. Men used to go in there, majority of the time the mandingos, but the men used to go in there and perform acts in order to pregnate the woman. He's blindfolded as well. So not to kind of make things a bit sad or a bit let's say a gentleman, a young man, is sent into the breeding house and he's blindfolded. And there's a woman in there that he has to perform an act on, otherwise they'll kill him or they'll threaten to kill his family, so he has to do the deeds whilst he's blindfolded in the dark. He doesn't know who's in there. What we have to remember is some people were on plantations with family members. So not to be too gruesome, could be his mum in there. He doesn't know, but that was his job, and that was her job, to produce. Many slaves were sent to the Caribbean, or more slaves were sent to Martinique than they were in the whole history of the United States. Caribbean was like the worst place. There's something called the Barbados Code that was written to basically give a guideline how to torture slaves, literally. So for example, if a slave master was to call a slave and he was like back chatting or he was like, what? He can get slit on his nose. If he did it again, he would get another slit. And if he was rude, after that, then they'll put salt in it. Another punishment would be, is that they used to put sand down some people's mouths and then add water. You know what happens to water and sand? It's hard. For some men that were really aggressive, how they used to dehumanize him was do it the other way around, just not in his mouth, in his anus. They used to put sand in his anus. Also what they used to do is called, they used to put a tire around the gentleman, set him alight, rolling down the hill. It's called Derby Dose. And you can see some of these punishments actually happen in West Africa today, but where did it come from? There are so many different things that happen to Caribbean people. The reason why a lot of slaves were sent to the Caribbean, simply because life expectancy, as soon as you touch land, was average of 5 years. That's on average. Some people lasted a year. There are studies that you can Google this where you can see bones. So the south coast of Jamaica, St. Elizabeth, there's a plantation section where the study was taken where they found bones. And with the bones, they studied it and saw that the slave died from exertion, meaning they worked so hard that the muscle tissue fell off the bones. They worked from sunrise to sunset. Now, if anybody's been to the Caribbean, sunrise in the summer is like 5 o'clock in the morning. Sunset could even be 10 o'clock, even 11 o'clock. So imagine working from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. and you're only 9 years old. The shackles that they had, they didn't have like small ones for children, big ones for adults. They had literally the same size, the same weight. Kids were dying. I've seen the slave trade. Kids were dying like that. So they kept on sending African slaves all to the Caribbean all the time. It was because they didn't last long, because the punishment was so deep. In America, it's a lot different because they had freedom a little bit to maneuver. They could have families. They got married illegally when they used to jump the broom. So America's history is small, but it was worse in the Caribbean, especially Brazil. Some of you may not know, there are more black people in Brazil than anywhere else in the world outside of Nigeria. So the Portuguese took the Nigerians to Brazil, colonized Brazil, and pretty much set up the camps there. Obviously, you can see how it is for black people in Brazil. They don't get treated nice. The severity of it is this, is that despite Britain tells us to forget a lot of history, it's still prominent and evident around us, as you're going to continue seeing, especially when we get to the last one. This point here is very important because we have to understand exactly what our people went through. So yeah, like, so to make it a bit deep, I want you to understand how important this is, especially for young people to know this, because they think slavery, they look at 12 years of slave, and there's this like American narrative. The British narrative is far worse, and again, a lot of money's been made from it. Whether we get reparations or not, I mean, they'll be bankrupt if they was to be honest. Do you know what I mean? But there's more to reparations than there is like for money. Like, reparations literally means repair, and I think, well, we could do with some money, but what we really need is to repair the mind. And before we have a revolution, we've got to have a revelation of the mind. We have to understand where we are, how we got here, and how we can get out. But first we have to go through the brutal history to understand how important it is to us, but also how we can bounce back. Our ancestors made it through, and that's why we're here. If some of our ancestors decided to kill themselves as they did, because they thought, you know what, I'd rather die than be bonded, most of us wouldn't be here, because the lineage would have died. So think about the individuals that are not here today, or do not exist, or weren't created, it's because their ancestors killed themselves. So you have to always pick up, no matter what religion, faith you are, you have to give respect to your peoples that made it through. Because if they didn't, we would not be here today. Lloyd's. What Lloyd's is this? That's Lloyd's back there. We've had Lloyd's registrar. There's one more thing that people did. Slave owners did. Close. To do with ships. I've mentioned it before. Oh, yeah. Alright. This is the hub. It's not really the base, because when Lloyd's was doing insurance for ships, this wasn't here, but this became the location in retrospect in insuring ships. Because when the original Lloyd's died, 2 of his family members took over and continued on the business and created insurance after they was running the shipping business, registry. This place here has probably made between 17 to 18 billion pounds of slavery alone. Does anybody remember how much money the slave owners got for compensation? No, close. No, actually lower than that. Nope. Close. What do you say 50? 50, 50. Yeah, lower than that. Close.
13.
Up. 20.
Oh.
So, slave owners had slaves. Britain was like, all right, let's get rid of them. And it was like, fine. We will let the slaves go, but I've got crops. I've got sugar cane. I've got so many things growing. Who's going to pick them? I'm going to lose out on everything. And black people, slaves, were considered cargo and property. Therefore, their properties go in, so they can pick you up some money. So the British government paid out £20 million in that money. In today's money, and there are some starting to come through more, so it's actually higher, but it's around 70 billion. That was in the early 1800s. We stopped paying that money back in 2015. So in 2015, who had a job? Raise your hand. 2015, 4 years ago, who was working? No. All right. Who pays taxes? Okay. Where do you think that tax money went? Come again, someone? Okay. So we're back to the government. So the government's like, all right, we'll pay out 20 million. That's no problem. So it was like, well, we need to get that money back. What can we do? We're just going to take it out of the taxes of the citizens. So imagine you're working, you're behind off to make ends meet. Your tax money goes back to the government, paid slave owners who enslaved your family. So basically, what you're doing is, do you know what? Here you go. Thank you for enslaving my family. There you go. You hold a little £5. You hold a little £100. You hold a little £30. Pretty much.
What about us? What about us?
Oh. Reparations, yeah?
That's it.
Speak to the gentleman about reparations. He's got some good ideas. So, but again, they don't talk about where our taxes go. They talk about NHS, Police Force, and fire as well. But the second part of it is that they admitted that it finished in 2015, and that was it. So they're not even telling us that our money is going back to people who enslaved other people. Now this is why a lot of people don't trust the government, or trust politicians. You choose the wrong place to go to. You chose the wrong place. You're safe because it's Labour, so it's alright. Why do people like Labour?
They basically represent diverse cultures. But they weren't always like that, though, were they?
They weren't always like that. But they did, especially during when you had the Nationality Act, 65, 68. Labour was like, okay, we need to push more diversity, blah, 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 blah. And one of the main supporters of them was the Citizen Advice Bureau. Citizen Advice Bureau supported a lot of African and Asian movements, especially immigrants that came over shortly after the Windrush time. And were fully on board. They used to have signs up. They used to say, if you come across, because basically what used to happen is a restaurant or hotel or bar or pub could say, as you know, no dogs, no Irish, no blacks. Then they changed the Nationality Act and Race Relations Act, and then they said, okay, well, you can't have any signs, or you could actually verbalise it. And then it changed later on in 68. And then they said you can't say that at all. But Citizen Advice Bureau was behind that. So if you know a lot of black people that go to Citizen Advice Bureau, it's because from our grandparents' time, or great-grandparents, depending how old we are, they were supportive. However, I don't know if you've seen the recent incident that happened with Citizen Advice Bureau, where they created a pack. It's quite funny. Where they describe the issues that they've had with black people. And they said that they're aggressive, they're a bit racist, their manners are horrible. Did you see that? What happened? Where someone went online and was like, hold on, and then screenshotted it and sent it around and they took it down. Yeah. It's like the Home Office, when they create the pack for when they deport people to Jamaica, the pack that they give them says, learn patois. I'll get my phone, I'm going to show you. Learn patois. Basically, like jerk chicken.
They say that, like jerk chicken.
I can read between the lines, innit? And also be wary of robbers and killers. That's pretty much it. So imagine you're like 75, 85 years old, being deported back to Jamaica. They give you a pack. It says like, welcome to Jamaica, and you're skipping through, and it says, okay, so learn the patois. mind the killers and robbers, and be fond of Jamaican food, i.e. jerk chicken. So it's another reason why a lot of people don't trust Home Office, because of the institutional racism comments that come out from time to time. But anyway, this is the ugliest building I've ever seen in my life. You say, yeah, Rogers, he built it from the inside out. So you put all the pipe work and everything on the outside. So the inside is meant to be more luxury and it's like stairs and blah, 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 blah. But they made a lot of money from slavery. But you go on their website and they admit it. There are families, Caribbean families, who are sued, well, they tried to sue them 6 years ago and tried to get reparations.
So, okay, so, you know, like they admit it, so do they have some kind of a, I don't want to say charity, but do they have some kind of fund that kind of maybe helps, maybe black businesses or anything like that?
No.
That'd be good, that'd be a good idea.
It would be. See, I'll be honest, the trouble with that, is, have you ever heard the saying, people say, everybody wants to be black until it's time to be black? Okay, so if they was to put money into organisations to say, okay, well, this is a black organisation or whatnot, there are a lot of people that will turn and say, oh no, we're a black organisation, but then what they would do, to play it smart, is to say diverse.
Yeah.
So that would include everybody.
Yeah,
And then black organisations would be at the bottom, unfortunately. So they could do it, but which one would they select?
I think sometimes, if that's the case, they should do it and don't tell no one about it. You know, like, as in, you know, like, for example, you do have clients that are black. They have clients that are black.
Yeah.
But then, you know, like when you go to the bank and you want a loan or you want mortgage or whatever, then it's a case of they know that they're black, they're not hiding it, and at least there's a fund that can help those people. But they don't have to say it. They don't have to say it, but they can do it. They can be clever and they can do it.
There are so many things that they could do, but I think like they would have to calculate how much. So let's say there's like 250 black organisations in London, and you're going to fund all of them? And if so, how much?
I think, you know, if they start to do something, it's better than nothing.
Definitely. They could. But what you'll notice as well, I know you've noticed it already, a lot of men around here wear blue suits. What's the whole blue suit thing? Sorry,
I don't know the secret reason.
Look, as you said it, look.
Blue suits, blue ties, blue.
Is it that logo? Is it a nice logo? What is it?
Oh, blue suits. Do you know, I won't even tell you. Research that. The hidden reason behind blue suits, especially with politicians. Sorry, I didn't even. I totally forgot. Blue suits. Look up blue suits, and also look up why they recommend like blonde hair, blue-eyed receptionists make the best approach. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons. But you guys, so don't say but yeah, so you've got Lloyd's Insurance, Lloyd's Registrar, India Arms, Plantation House, Guild of Cane, Lloyd's Bank, all, and if you look on here, it's literally a triangle. What was it?
It was blood, skin, and earth.
Yeah. Blood, skin and earth. Blood of people, or blood of people with your family, the people of the lands, and this is the earth. Do you know why he created this? Matter of fact, next year we're celebrating 100 years. He created it in 1920. Marcus Garvey created the Pan-African flag in 1920 because white Americans, have you heard of coon songs? Alright, if you haven't, you might want to write this down. Write down coon songs, okay, and listen to the coon songs that was produced in the late 1800s. Coon songs was created same time as Jumping Jim Crow. So Jim Crow was like a character used to be like, yes boss, no boss. Yeah. He created this flag because coon songs, there was many of them. Basically what they said was every race has a flag besides a coon. It was actually songs like, imagine it being on like Top of the Pops or something. That's basically what it was. So there was like, I can think of eight coon songs where there was basically taking the mickey out of black people, saying you don't have a flag, blah 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 blah. So Marcus Garvey's like, yeah, all right, create my own flag. So it's got nothing to do with anything like, oh my god, it's so Afrocentric. No, he's like, yo, people across the world, we need this, and that's why he's like my hero, because he managed to unite 2 million people across the world without any social media. How many? All right. Who's ever had a birthday party or a gathering and you invite like 30 of your friends? Do 30 of your friends turn up? No. Oh, do you know I got a babysit? Oh, I hurt my toe. Oh, I'm blind, but I'm messaging you. So many excuses. 2 million people worldwide. Fantastic. Basically, they had like a real black revolution between 1900 and 1940. So you had W.E. Du Bois was like, okay, well, we need black politics. Marcus Garvey was like, okay, well, we need black economics. Elijah Muhammad was like, well, we need black religion. So just every like 5 to 10 years, like something came up, bam, 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 bam. Then you had Black Wall Street in the late 1920s, or the end of late 1920s anyway. The American government was like, all right, we need to kill this noise. So started to wipe people out. And then you had Malcolm X that came after this, and the Black Panthers. And then more revolutionaries, and they was just like, we're sick and tired, we're going to make sure that this doesn't happen. So we started to put them all in jail. Does anybody know why Malcolm X was a Pan-Africanist? It's a Pan-African flag, by the way. Does anybody know why? Does anybody read his autobiography? Does anybody know what happened to his dad and his mum? Malcolm X, his dad was a Pan-African, meaning he was a follower of this, saying, you know what, Africa for the Africans. Yeah, we need our own stuff. We don't need to worry about nothing else. We can just get it out. Malcolm X's dad was a Pan-Africanist, and he was threatened by the US government and the mafia, and they said, basically, if you don't stop what you're doing, we're going to kill you. He's like, all right, cool, no problem. He was like, all right. They caught Malcolm X's dad and basically tied him to a train track. The train ran over and killed him. Malcolm X's mum went crazy. They put her in a loopy house. She ended up dying. That's what happened to his dad. Then he started to go AWOL, became a pimp.
Red Fox, yeah.
For a little while, you know what I mean? And he was what, 20, 21? About 21, 22? He was 22 at the time. And then when he went to jail, created the Nation of Islam, blah, 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 blah. But he believed in this. Martin Luther King was more like, we should go and be friends with everybody else. But this is the actual movement. Kwame Nkrumah, he basically read this as like, this is how we need to navigate in the world. So he challenged the British government and took over Ghana, and Ghana became the first black country in Africa to get independence in 1957. Kwame Nkrumah believed in this. Marcus Garvey believed in the Haitian Revolution. If you look at pictures of Marcus Garvey, you see him with like a little military hat with feathers and whatnot. It's all red, white and blue. Haitian colours. He was a fond of the Haitian Revolution in 1804.
etc. Directed to
the email address that everyone's got. blackrooted@hotmail.co.uk, hotmail.com, sorry, or my socials is Darrel.Blake, Instagram, Darrel.Blake.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time and for your efforts for coming today and enjoy your day.